I was sitting, kind of quivering, and the girl hugging my knees for about 10 years, and then I decided to go ahead and really make the movie.
Why do you come to us? I just want to keep my family safe.
When did you start actively thinking about a sequel?
The truth be told, we didn't start actively thinking about it until 2012. So a full 2 years later.
Because to me that's hysterical. The biggest film of all time, you're thinking, does the world want another one?
No, we're thinking that we as individuals have other things in our lives we want to do. Jim, in particular, wanted to go to the Mariana Trench.
Bottom of the ocean.
That's right.
When in doubt, just do it all. That's always been my philosophy. Let's see, Deep Ocean Explorer. Oh, that's not good. Movie director. Why choose? Do I have to choose?
Just do it all.
Well, what took us long? Number one, the principle of doing something right. Number two, the fact that we decided to do 4 sequels and not 1. So we needed to write 4 scripts. That took time.
Writing a script before you shoot a movie?
Why did we else?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I know one thing. Wherever we go, his family. Is our fortress.
It takes months out of your life. This took a year and a half, this one?
Oh, more than that. We started conversations with it about 2013.
Wow.
Me and Zoe still did some performance capture this year. And Jim only locked the movie off a couple of days ago.
Shut the front door.
It's not like it was a 10-year holiday. There's always been someone out of this thousands creative team working on it. We're just a small cog in this thing at the end of the day, because there's all these designers and tech guys and creatives,
We depend on
we're part
each
of
and every,
Avatar family
we depend
working
on each
on it.
other,
Dad, I know you think I'm crazy, but I feel her.
This is going to sound a bit strange, but hello, teenager.
Yes,
How does that feel?
it was fun.
I hear her heartbeat.
It was challenging, but I loved my character.
She's so close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's strange to think, okay, what would a teenage, hybrid, Na'vi, there's a lot of layers here.
Yeah. Luckily, a lot of layers are specified in the scripts. And she's so different from everyone else, which she's quite ambivalent about.
So what does her heartbeat sound like?
But I felt there was great heart in it. And she's quite a gentle character, which stands out in a movie like this.
Mighty.
And I had a long time, because we kept postponing beginning, to re-find my 14-year-old and spend time in classes with that age group and listen to the pitch of their voices and all that stuff.
It's a sort of Billy Madison image where you're sitting in those little school chairs, there's a bunch of kids all around you.
Luckily, I'm sitting in the background, just observing, trying to be invisible.
If you want to live here, you have to ride. Let's do it.
What physically is the set looking like for a layman for the underwater scenes?
Right, so it's a set without a set. So your coral reef is going to be some pieces of tubing that are screwed together to create contact points for the actors. So if they're pulling themselves through coral, we don't build the coral. We build that which they need to touch, and then we kind of warp reality to fit their hand contacts later. And that's the gig. We only build what supports the actors and what they're in physical contact with.
The way of water connects all things.
I was wondering what your initial reaction was to him saying, so, underwater?
I remember I wasn't quick to respond.
Whereas
I was trying to interpret what he meant.
I was already bombing in the
three
water.
languages.
I wasn't even thinking. It's silly Jake Sully just diving straight in and then figuring out what are we going to be doing, boss?
Zoe, you're not just going to be performing at a foot underwater, you're going to be 30 feet underwater. And I remember I did take a pause. I was like, That's awesome, you know, because obviously you're not gonna turn down the challenge. This is our home.
I need you. Listen. And I need you to be strong.
We did get trained for a whole year before we had to go underwater. And when I see the movie, I see our ease in that world, which I don't think we could act if we just thrown us in and said, now we're going to do the water stuff. We look like we're at home in that element.
You're actually, and I know this is being stupid, underwater
Yes.
with
No, we're
You're
moving
freediving
on.
the whole
It's freediving the whole time. The only person that got to scuba underwater is Jack Champion as a spider, and they made a mask for him.
because he was Jim's favorite. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you can breathe underwater, don't worry, we've got you.
Special human boy.
Yes, a special human boy.
Just breathe. Breathe.
I mean, what we did was initially is we went out into the ocean so that they could go down and you know, just interact with the coral reef and see the wonders for themselves and then have it in their minds later. But we also went out into the ocean with functional mock-ups of the creatures that could actually fly and dive and do hydrobatics underwater and all the things that they do in the movie. And it sounds impossible, but we did it with water jet propulsion. So I don't know if you've ever seen these at resorts. They have these guys that go up in these platforms and they fly around 25 feet up and they do flips and things like that. We took that technology, developed it further, and made a 4-jet version of a skim wing. And the skim wing could go 20 miles an hour underwater, pop out of the water, fly around, and then dive back in. And then we put people on it just to see what would happen, right? Because that's my whole approach to life. Let's just see what happens, right? What's the worst that could happen, right? And I like to get in and actually do the kind of physical ergonomics of it myself, so I can feel it and then develop it with the others. So it's almost like choreography. We're figuring out the choreography. I don't think the audience cares about the technology, but I think it's good for them to know that everything that you see a character doing is actually being done by a person.
Yes.
It's not just sort of made up CG animation. Somebody's doing it somewhere.
When was the last time you had a conversation with Matt Damon?
Jim Cameron called me. He offered me 10% of Avatar.
He's beating himself up over this, and I really think, Matt, you're kind of like one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Get over it. But he had to do another Bourne film, which was on his runway, and there's nothing he could do about that, and so he had to regretfully decline.
If I cross my fingers, could we have a Matt Damon cameo just at the very end?
We must do it. We have to do it so that the world is in equilibrium again. But he doesn't get 10% for fuck that.
Sorry, Matt, I know what you're thinking of.
I know.
There's even a syndrome called Avatar syndrome where people are very upset at not being able to stay in Pandora. And we've had a lot of press come through here with Avatar dresses and Avatar t-shirts and socks and whatever, I think it's great.
Fully painted head to toe. Yeah, I mean, good for them. That's awesome. But I
Yeah.
think people went into the cinema, watched it, and then went back in straight away because they didn't want to leave
Yeah.
the planet.
And I feel the experience this time is so immersive. You're an immediate member of this family. They don't let go of you until you leave the theater. And it's so seamless. It's really a portal to another world. So I hope they all have their Avatar syndrome pills. And they also have the kind of the happiness of knowing they're 4 more, So
Yeah.
including this one.
I took the dog tags home, and they hang on a picture of the amp suit actually, and I lent them to my grandson Ike. He wanted to be porridge for Halloween this year, and he was, and so he wore them.
Your grandson wanted to play your character at Halloween. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, it was good. Exactly right. You're right about that.
What did you make of that Ryan Gosling Saturday Night Live papyrus?
It's haunted me. Not really. I couldn't give a shit.
I can't eat. I can't sleep.
What's wrong?
It haunts me.
It is pretty funny. I'm just astonished that they spent that much money on a little cinematic vignette that's around such a, wispy thin concept.
I forgot about it for years, but then I remembered that Avatar, the giant international blockbuster, used the papyrus font as its logo.
I said, all right, guys, we are now doubling down. We're using papyrus for everything.
Oh, the makeup truck to say on the side. In papyrus.
Yes.
Makeup.
Yeah, exactly. The funniest thing about that whole story is I didn't even know it was papyrus. Nobody asked me. I just thought the art department had come up with this cool font.
Yeah. Here's a big question though. Why do you think the first film was such a success? And I know this is slightly tricky, but there seems to be many similar but different answers to that question.
When I get a writer's room together in 2013 to really start sort of breaking story across what I conceived at the time as a trilogy, I asked the room to spend some time to break that down. And, you look at the obvious stuff, the 3D, the colors, the world building, that's all the obvious stuff, right? But after a couple of days of discussion, we drilled down to other sort of secondary, tertiary layers. And we got down to something that I think is critical that we tried to keep in mind, which is that there was a kind of a dreamlike subconscious connection that people were actually unable to quantify verbally when they discussed it, with their friends and so on. But there was something that they were connecting with that we had to be well aware of. I mean, there were obvious things about wanting to belong, things that had to do with the epic hero journey, Joseph Campbell, those archetypes. That's all, I think, fairly straightforward. But there was that element that I called, borrowing from Carl Sagan, the numinous, right? No, seriously, there's something there that touched us and across all cultures. Because I think it's important to remember that Avatar was created by somebody who was from Canada. It played very well in North America, but it made 3/4 of its revenue internationally in all other cultures, right? So it was touching people everywhere the same way, regardless of language or religion or any of those things. So we had to keep that in mind. And we had to try to do that again to the best of our ability. I think we do, to one extent or another, and that'll vary by the individual viewer. But that was absolutely part of the goal. Then on top of that, you have to layer in a little bit of that, pesky plotting and character development and all that stuff. Story, whatever. No, but so obviously, there's a multi-layered challenge to writing and then designing and then executing, an Avatar film.
Thanks for